Welcome to Thoughts on Season of the Seraph. Season of the Seraph is the 19th season of Destiny 2 and is the precursor to Lightfall. It's also the best season of this year, which is not a high bar to clear. Let's get into this one because while I think it's okay, there are some things that I just don't jive with or otherwise feel weird about. With Osiris now awake, he inspires Anna to hurry the hell up and finish rebuilding Rasputin. After lamenting how difficult that's proving to be, Osiris decides Clovis Bray might be able to help. Reluctantly, the city enlists the Bray AI's help to track down various remains of the Warmind network in order to reconstruct Rasputin, who was hit hard by the pyramids when they DDoSed him back in Season of Arrivals. Also trying to get information from the network is the Witness, who's decided to get every single one of its pawns to do its job for it. Zivor Rath leads the main brigade, directly opposing our attempts to reach the semi-active corpses of Subminds Malahayate and Charlemagne. The Soul Divisive also makes an appearance on Mars, infiltrating a spire that was reactivated when a time rift touched its power source. All of these enemies are looking for something buried in Rasputin's data, something so secret that it's Neptune. They're looking for Neptune. We all saw the Lightfall trailer, and we all saw the cutscene from last season where Osiris mentioned Neptune. It's Neptune. Also joining the cast are Elsie Bray in her first ever seasonal appearance, and Mara Sov, who is watching Xivu like a hawk after the events of Lost. Oh, and Aramis returns to sound like an abused spouse as her choices in Plunder have dire consequences, such as the resurrection of her dead allies into scorn by the Witness. Clovis directs us around the system, including putting us on a space station in Earth's orbit. Despite this actually working to rebuild Rasputin, downloading Fellwinter's data from the remains of his ghost ends up partially reactivating him, allowing him to snitch on Clovis Bray's intent to blow up the Traveler and effectively kicking him out of the story. Afterwards, Mara finally reveals the obvious and asks how a Warmind is supposed to fight the Hive God of War, who literally gets more powerful with every act of violence against her. Rasputin has an existential crisis and starts trying to figure out solutions. In the meantime, he also has us retrieve the data for Abhorrent Imperative, a directive some may remember as what was meant to be activated should the Traveler decide to leave. However, Rasputin says he never activated it, and most of the people who have read any lore should know that because the Traveler never actually left or attempted to. That wraps it up for the seasonal story. Yeah, it's open-ended. It does continue in the Epilogue, but I have that as a separate category because I think there's a bit to unpack there. And I need to unpack all of this first. Clovis Bray is the single best character in this season. His ego and asshole tendencies are on full display, and his lack of knowledge of the events of the past centuries make it all the better. Seeing Osiris and Mara and Clovis clash is also wonderful, because they're putting three unstoppable forces of narcissism against each other. That being said, I find Mara actually improving as a character ever since Lost. Osiris is also a welcome return. What is strange is the sheer disconnect in Rasputin. Those who know how Rasputin speaks will find that this version is significantly different. Granted, there is a reasonable explanation, as he did absorb all of Fellwinter's knowledge, which changed him significantly. However, it is still very jarring to me and others who know Rasputin more as a poetic yet cryptic individual with a loose morality in the face of what works in the long term. For instance, a close friend of mine brought up what he refers to as a paradox in writing and intent. Rasputin tells Anna that his decisions during the collapse were mathematically correct, but not the right one, further stating that Fellwinter's data allowed him to do an objective review of his life. This is presumably Bungie taking a moral stance on Rasputin's decisions. But is it that simple? For example, the Grimoire card, Ghost Fragment Rasputin 3, where Rasputin initiates the shutdown, heavily implies that he would have died had he not done it. This is further reinforced by the opening of Season of Arrivals, which almost killed him. Furthermore, he later states himself in Ghost Fragment Mysteries that he is made to win, and to learn how, and shutting himself down is part of that. Midnight Exigent is based around self-preservation and developing a countermeasure against a threat later down the line. Taking this into account, was his decision wrong? to simplify it, he would have died had he not done it, and doing it has led to things that he was needed for down the line, such as the destruction of the Almighty. Furthermore, if the plot has him do something significant against the Witness or any other big threat down the line, then Midnight Exigent was necessary. And yes, I do know what it is like saying that after the epilogue. Anyway, the collapse was a massive event in Destiny's history, being labeled by Rasputin himself as a civilization kill event. It was so system-shattering that it proved that Golden Age humanity was so unprepared for a threat that it would have led to their total extinction had it not been for the Traveler. Furthermore, Rasputin didn't immediately shut himself down. He tried to fight, only for it to do nothing. In short, Rasputin shuts down to learn, which he does in Seraph, learning that he was wrong, which ends up proving him right. My friend has thus dubbed this as the Rasputin morality paradox. What is also odd is Clovis Bray, who literally has never cared about Rasputin in his entire life. There is a point in his logbook where he wrote Anna in an attempt to convince her to help him in the EXO program. He told her she was wasting her time with that paranoiac machine. He finds projects not his own mostly beneath him. So why is it that Clovis cares so much now or then that he's willing to blow up the Traveler? It just seems like a consistency issue. Not that he wouldn't try to kill the Traveler, just the reason and method seems off with Clovis's personality and history. Other than that, I don't know if the main plot really has anything wrong with it. I can nitpick specific things like how the Mars heist makes zero sense no matter which way you slice it, and believe me, I've tried, but the story seems mostly solid, if not really standing out. Seraph added a new batch of activities, including Heist Battlegrounds, the new dungeon, Seraph Shield, semi-replayable lead-ups to Seraph Shield, and non-replayable story missions. Again, Heist Battlegrounds are about what you'd expect, adding a few new mechanics, including the laser-tracking Warmind Spires and laser-firing PDT refraction cores. The goal is to stop the Hive, Taken, and Scorn from infiltrating the submine vaults on the Moon, Mars, and Europa, and to get the data from them. The Mars heist also sees the return of Kelgarath from Lost, who has been demoted to Darkblade. Like other Battlegrounds, it's okay. I still think Psyops has it beat, but these are fun additions to the game, and I'm glad that they're staying after Lightfall comes out. Seraph's Shield utilizes the aforementioned spires and takes you on a journey through a Morningstar copy station in a mission similar to Presage. It includes the usage of all buffs from Deepstone Crypt, fallen turrets, various mechanics introduced in Beyond Light and Seraph, the resurrection of Praxis as a Scorn, and a ton of little secrets scattered throughout, including a robot dog you can find after using the new exotic, Revision 0, on a bunch of orbs. Seraph's Shield also adds a legend version, which works like Witch Queen's campaign missions. I don't have much to say about the story-related stuff other than they're interesting and I wish they could be replayed. What is replayable and even farmable, however, is the new dungeon, Spire of the Watcher. This is a fairly straightforward dungeon, but is extremely fun to play through. It also introduces the first Soul Divisive Wyvern in the form of its final boss, Perseus. Despite the Warmind aesthetic, the armor and gear takes on a Tex Mechanica appearance, including a hat with a low as hell drop rate. Overall, I like the activities in Seraph, though I'll admit that Seraph Shield stumped me initially and fighting Praxis on Legend is literal hell. Also, please give fallen turrets a crit spot. I don't really have much to say about the gameplay of this season. Mechanic-wise, the only things I really find annoying in any capacity are the spires, but they don't get in the way too much. As this is a Xivu season, Wrathborn mechanics come back, which are a mixed bag, but not too bad to deal with. Some changes were made to the game in preparation for Lightfall, but a lot of it doesn't really affect me. Overall, I personally, to reiterate, don't have much to say. It's okay. The Awoken Wing has been converted into a more Warmind aesthetic, with the experimental exoframe Anna is using for Rasputin being placed at its center. This is also where you'll find the robot dog I mentioned earlier after you collect it. There isn't much more to say about this Helm update other than that they re-added a Warmind orbit track as well as a unique version of Wasteland from Beyond Light. The epilogue begins with Aramis somehow bypassing the Seraph Station's protocols, calling back to an old fallen tradition. Beginning the activation sequence for Abhorrent Imperative, aiming to destroy the Traveler. Rasputin tells Anna that the only way to stop it is to delete everything, even himself. We infiltrate the station while Keitel aims to distract House Salvation, countering Aramis along the way. We make it to the control room, install Rasputin, and then things happen. The Traveler moves. It actually begins to move. It flies into Earth's orbit, in the path of the Warsats, right as Aramis is about to fire. Per his request, Anna unplugs Rasputin, killing him. The Warsats are destroyed, the Traveler remains still. Aramis questions why it doesn't flee, to which the witness says it has nowhere left to go. I fucking loved this. Unironically, I think this epilogue is by far one of the best, if not the best, out of the seasons we've gotten so far. The mission is challenging but fun, the cutscene was one of the best I've seen from this game, and the implications are very intriguing. I'm very satisfied with the epilogue of Season of the Seraph. Destiny 2 Year 5 was a confused mess that I cannot see being the best overall year of the game. It has a great opening, even if it leaves some big questions in its wake, and it has a great ending. However, the entire middle promises great stories only to have whittled them down by the end of it. Plunder especially was bad, but I believe I've spoken enough about that season. It has high highs but very low lows, creating a seasonal year that induces whiplash. I will admit, I have hopes for Lightfall, not only due to the title, but the talks about the Witness the devs keep pushing. I do not care for Neomuna, and I do not care about Cloudstriders. I want the light to fall, and to fight the darkness head-on. May this DLC be the end of Callus, and the beginning of the end for the pawns the Witness has under its control, leaving only those like the Tormentors, Disciples, and whatever originally inhabited those ships. As for the seasonal year following Lightfall, I hope it's more competent. I think the gameplay aspect is relatively safe, as even Plunder had at least one fun activity. It just feels like every seasonal story is drama for the sake of drama rather than moving the plot forward. Characterization is important, but not at the expense of the world that's created and the lore that built it. We're nearing the end of the saga where questions should become answers, and all the lore relating to the light and dark pays off. No more dragging our feet around. Now is the time to raise the stakes and pave the road for the end. With hope, I wait for Lightfall, praying it is everything it's been built up to be. At the very least, I'm hella excited for the soundtrack. That concludes my thoughts on Season of the Seraph and Destiny 2 Year 5. See you in a few days.